Greetings, adventurers. Welcome to Miniature Legends, a place where even the smallest of figures can be legendary. I am your host, Zaxata, and if you're anything like me, you find yourself with a pile of sprues lying around. Let's fix that. Today, I will be demonstrating how you can turn sprue, gift cards, and other basic materials into these 4 easy-to-craft magical base designs. Let's get started, shall we? I began with some air-dry clay, shaping it into a small coast for the dock structure to sit upon. Next, I cut a pair of roughly equal-sized sections of L-shaped sprue and glued them to the base, making sure they were supported by the still-drying clay. Once that was dry, I applied a mix of water, PVA glue, and sand. The sand was still quite fluffy, so I gave the entire base a coat of Mod Podge mixed with black acrylic paint to seal the sand in place. I cut a few strips of balsa wood scraps that I had lying around into planks and glued them to the top of the sprue. I want this dock to feel weathered and worn, so I cut out a few chunks, and then gave the base a prime and a zenithal highlight. I began establishing the base coats, then I gave the base a wash of orange-brown. Next, a heavy dry brush using a variety of off-whites and yellows to give the sand some contrast. I highlighted the wood with a brighter brown, using a flat brush to give some irregularity to my brushstrokes, and added a few highlights with cork brown. Next, I got to work on crafting the waves. I mixed gloss gel and an electric blue and applied it. This was a mistake. The paint was far too bright and wouldn't look like a tropical ocean at that hue, so I coated the water in a dark blue wash, followed by a layer of Caribbean turquoise to mute down the intensity. I repainted the base color of the sand to ease the transition into the darker water, and I began coating the area with gloss gel. I applied multiple layers during this process, building up some wave motion and irregularity. The gel shrinks while drying, so you'll need several coats to build up to a wave-like state. Then, I applied a mix of gloss gel and white paint to the crests of the gel layers to give the impression of waves. For some final details, I added a single tuft and a piece of string to act as a loose rope left on the dock. I began by cutting out pieces of sprue, shaving them down and clipping them into similarly sized lengths. Next, I applied a small patch of superglue, and then began forming the sprue bricks into a simple offset pattern. Then, I began filling the cracks between the bricks with watered down PVA glue mixed with sand. The large flat section got extra sand, as it will become a muddy pothole. Once that had dried, I applied a layer of Mod Podge and black paint to seal the sand in place. A quick zenithal prime, and I got to painting. I mixed up a variety of orange, brown, and tan colors, establishing some irregularity in the bricks. The sand was coated with a layer of dark brown, and the entire base was given a dark brown wash. I applied a heavy dry brush across the base to pick out some details, first with brown, and then sandy yellow. For the pothole, I applied a generous layer of gloss gel. Cleaning up the excess with a damp paper towel. Once that had dried, I applied a dark brown wash atop the gel, to darken it and give it the appearance of a puddle. I applied a few highlights to the bricks, and finally a few acrylic leaves. If you are enjoying this video, let the YouTube imp know by clicking upon these buttons. Now, on to the next base. I applied a layer of air-dry clay, shaping it and forming a central depression for the grave. Next, I sanded and cut out a rectangle from a gift card, cutting it into a rough gravestone shape. I decided to place a skull on the gravestone. However, I later determined it didn't fit very well and removed it in a later step. I affixed the gravestone into the still drying clay. Once it had dried, I applied a layer of PVA glue and sand across the base. Then, a layer of Mod Podge and acrylic paint to seal the sand in place. Let's be rid of that skull now. A quick zenithal prime with the airbrush. First, the base coats. Dark brown for the soil, stonewall gray for the gravestone, and then a quick wash of brown across the base. I mixed up a green glaze and applied it to the exterior soil to sell the idea of moss. I felt the gray was too light, so I applied a darker toned gray onto the gravestone. Then, I dry brushed a variety of browns across the soil. I added a tuft, edge highlighted the headstone, and finally applied a simple freehand RIP for some dramatic irony. Finally, I added a few acrylic leaves. I started with some spare, insulated wire, cutting it, and supergluing it to the base. I cut out a few sections of gift cards to act as floor panels, gluing them in place and cutting off the excess. I took the cut wire tips and glued them into a depression between the panels to give the impression of some kind of mechanical system underneath, and then glued a piece of sprue in as a greeble that I think might look like a light. Then, I gave the base a quick prime and a zenithal highlight. I began working on the base colors, painting the light with a gunmetal gray, then painting the cables with a variety of different colors. Next, I gave the whole base a black wash, and then gave the panels a highlight of the base color. I did the same for the top of the cables, and the light. Next, I used some rusty orange paint to give a more weathered look to the panels. I wanted to paint this cable as having hazard stripes, so I painted a quick black and white alternating pattern, then coated the cable in an Imperial Fist contrast paint. Then, an additional highlight to the panels with a mid-tone gray. I edge highlighted the panels with light gray, for a final touch, I applied a layer of white to the center of the light, then glazed in several layers of red to give the impression of a light source. I hope you enjoyed seeing my process. Do you have any ideas for bases you'd like me to attempt in the future? Please let me know with a message down below. For now, if you want to see more of my work on bases, I have a playlist where you can see all of my basing content on the top left. I hope to see you again soon. Farewell, adventurers.